webinar session of Prepare to Pass F5. My name is Asad Ijaz, and I will be taking along to you for the next 5 days. And in this Prepare to Pass session, we will be revising the key topics of F5. Please note my email address so that if you have any query, you can email me at that. Tomorrow, I will be sharing you the WhatsApp group so that you people can add me in that, and then we can have a group discussion too as well. So now, let's start my discussion. So first of all, what are the objectives of the study Excel? This Prepare to Pass session. So the benefits of getting this webinar is that we are going to discuss the key technical areas which will guide you to put most of your effort in the right direction. So it is important to note that over here that we will only be discussing the key technical areas and not all of the syllabus. Not all of the syllabus. Right? My major emphasis will be on how to perform questions in CBE environment, because I hope that majority of the students are now giving their F5 exams in CBE. Because at least as far as Pakistan is concerned, giving the exam of F5 in CBE environment is now compulsory. Then we will also ensure that by the end of this session, you will be able to meet the examiner's expectations, which is very important. If you want to pass F5 or even any of the exam in ACCA, what you have to do is you have to perform your exam in a way that it meets the examiner's expectations. Then, if I conclude my point on the objectives, so it's a complete revision package. And the objective of this session is to ensure that you will pass your exam. So now what is the paper pattern? This will be my first key point to discuss in this session. Your final exam, which you are going to appear in March 2018, will include 3 sections. So it has section A. Section A consists of 15 objective tests, each having 2 marks, making a total of 30 marks. Then we have section B. In section B, we have 3 OT cases, each having 5 OTs, making a total of 30 marks once again. So that means each OT case, that means we will be having in total 15 objective tests. Then we have section C, and in section C, we will be having 2 CRs. CR means constructed response, each constructed response having 20 marks. However, these 20 marks can be subdivided into multiple requirements. So this section comprises of 40 marks. So this is my 100 marks looks like. Now there will be also 5 objective tests as seeded questions. It is important to note that these seeded questions carry no marks. So either these 5 seeded questions which carry no marks is in section A. That means when you open your exam, there will be chances that section A carries 20 objective tests. So either this will be the situation, or you have to solve an extra OTKs. So if that will be the situation, then you will see that you have 4 OTKs to solve. But remember that these extra 5 objective tests carries no marks. Neither we knew that which objective test is seeded. However, we have been allotted additional 20 minutes for that. Additional 20 minutes for that. So is there any question up till now? So any question? One of the students has asked, are the seeded questions mandatory? Yes, they are mandatory to solve. It is important to note that we don't know which questions are seeded. Which questions are seeded, we don't know that. So anything else? One of the students has asked that is the paper of 100 marks or 110 marks? Dear, technically it is of 100 marks because 5 additional seeded questions carry no marks. One of the students has asked us the purpose of seeded questions. Dear, the seeded questions ensures that the paper that you are appearing is fair. What happened over here is that they have made a complete database of questions and computer itself pick and choose these questions. Now there is a risk that as a student you might appear in an exam which is a difficult one. So to ensure that the exam is fair, they have included the seeded questions, which is a check on the fairness of your exam. So the most important point is that either it will be in section A or in section B, and we have to attempt that. One of the students has asked me, it can be from section C as well. So dear, no. It can only be from section A or section B. One of the students has asked me, do you have any plans to cover the topic? Yes, I do have a plan. So just wait a while and we will see that. So now let's move on. This is a very important slide for me because in that I will be discussing the reasons for unsuccessful attempts. Now, what are the reasons for the unsuccessful attempts? So the first reason is not enough practice. So the key to pass is to do maximum practice. Do as much practice as you can. then sometimes there is poor time allocation in the exam. And due to that poor time allocation, what happened? You didn't perform your exam very well, and the result is that you won't get much marks. So once again, it will be very important for us that in the exam, we allocate the time to each part appropriately. Then not attempting all part of given questions. So sometimes what happens is that as a candidate, we don't know that which is to answer or what is the answer of a certain part. We don't know that. So now it is important to that we at least try to solve such part. Although such part should be attempted at the end of your exam. The first point that you need to cover in your exam environment is to cover the easy parts of your exam. So for the difficult areas, you have to come back later. But don't skip that at all. Because sometimes, even in the difficult parts, if you have been able to perform a calculation which carries around 1 mark or 2 marks, this 1 or 2 marks calculation will be sufficient for you to sometimes make you through to the exams. As you know, that the difference between 49 and 50 is only 1. Now, this is also a problem that examiners see in your scripts, and that is not answering the questions as expected by the examiners. So sometimes examiner has asked you something specific, but student generally try to answer a question in a way that he has practiced in the revision kit. However, sometimes its requirement is completely different what he has asked in the past exam paper or you have covered in the revision kit. So it is important to note that we read the requirement carefully and we understand the requirement carefully. Then not enough knowledge about the subject area. So of course we have to cover the entire syllabus. Then panic in the exam when you see something unseen on the question booklet. So this happens quite a lot for many students, that they have prepared well, they have done enough practice, they have a good plan to allocate time. But what happens in the exam is they see something in the question which is unusual to them. So instead of being calm and solving it, they panic in the exam. And because they panic, they just messed up their exams. And the result is an unsuccessful attempt. So sometimes many students just read the solution of questions. They don't try to write every part of question by themselves. So actually, when they start to perform that, they messed up. They don't know what to write it because they are not used to of that. This is another problem. It is something that you have seen a driver, that how he drives a car, and you know all these steps, how to drive the car, but you haven't drive that car by yourself. And you think that you will drive. And to be honest, you will not until you sit on the steering wheel and drive it. So you have to not just read the solutions of the questions, but you also need to try and solve the questions at your own. Then lack of planning while answer. So this is very important, because when you lack planning while answering, your structure of your answer will be very wayward, and it will be very difficult for the marker to mark your script and give you appropriate marks for that. So it is very important that you first plan your answer, you have an appropriate plan before answering the question, and then you answer it. So do you have any questions up till now? Do you have any questions? There are few concerns by the students. Let's discuss one by one. If I can see that. So one student asked me that, is there any negative marking? So no, dear. So if you have done something wrong with that, the maximum will be, the treatment will be that you will get 0. You will never get -1 in that. Is there allocation of marks between the parts in the OTQs? No. As far as objective test question is concerned, either you will get 2 marks or you will get 0. There is no somewhere between 1.5 marks. So to pass an objective test question or to get the objective test question right, you have to do it in full. Will we be able to cover the whole course? So to be honest, no. We will not be covering the whole syllabus in these 5 days, but I will try to cover the important areas of that. One of the students has asked me how to answer precisely. Dear, we will be discussing when these questions come. And one of the students has asked me that whether we should answer the theoretical part in bullets, points, or paragraphs. Dear, once again, it depends on the nature of the requirement, and we will discuss that. So is there any negative marking for writing extra material? No, there isn't any. So let's discuss the key areas of F5, the key topics. So these are the 4 key areas of the topic. The first one is costing. Now, the costing is subdivided into 4 key topics, that is ABC, the activity-based costing, then target costing, life cycle costing, and throughput accounting. Then we have the other area, which is decision making. And in the decision making, the key topics are CVP, pricing, limiting factor analysis, relevant costing, risk and uncertainty. In the budgeting and control topic, we have 2 key topics, that is budgeting and variance analysis. And our final section is of performance measurement, and this comprises of company's performance measurement and divisional performance measurement. Now, my division for the next 5 days will be, as I have seen that a lot of students are concerned on that. So this will be day 1. This will be day 1. That we will be discussing the costing topic. Then on day 2, we will be covering CVP, pricing and limiting factor. So this will be my day 2. On day 3, I will be covering relevant costing and risk and uncertainty. So this will be my day 3. On day 4, I will be covering budgeting and control. So this will be my day 4. And finally, my performance measurement section will be day 5. So is there any question regarding the key topics and the plan? This one student has asked me, will F5 available in both CBs and paper-based exam for June attempt? As far as Pakistan is concerned, there won't be any manual exams from F5 to F9 from March 2018 onwards. And to be honest, I don't know why you people are fear of giving your exams in CB, but as far as I have learned, that if you learn few key things about performing in the CB environment, now passing an F5 will be more easy. Handouts and note which you have provided, is that sufficient for March exam? I cannot say sufficient, because if these handouts will help you to perform your revision kit, your exams, then it will be sufficient. But sometimes few questions will be from those areas which I haven't covered. So you have to refer your book. But as there is a limited time, I hope that majority part will be covered. One of the students has requested me to go in-depth variants. So let's see, do remind me when we reach there. So I think we will be discussing on day 4. Are you going to provide us with some extra questions bank apart from kit? Well, I have selected few questions in the campus insight, and you can log in and can access those questions. Even few of these questions we will be discussing in this session as well. So anyway, let's move on. I hope there isn't much question on this topic now. Now, what are the examiner expectations? So these are the key examiner expectations that we meet, that we see. So first of all, examiner expects that you have a thorough knowledge of F5. Examiner expects that you are calm, you didn't panic in the exam. You have read the theoretical answers of the past papers. You have attended all classes, tests. The candidate should attempt the complete exam. The candidate has good time management. His answer is well presented. His answers are balanced, that is according to the marks available. And the student has attempted the complete paper. So he has not left any part. So these are the examiner expectations. So if you want to pass an exam like F5, we have to meet all these expectations. So any question up till now? One of the students has asked me, please tell how do we add row or column in exam, as spreadsheet in exam is a bit different from the Excel. Yes, this is true that the method to add the row or column in the exam format is a bit different from what we do in Microsoft Excel. But for this, I request you to wait and let such questions come. When we will be discussing these questions, if you can remind me, I will give you the key techniques to do that. One of the students has asked me, at the end, could you inform us what is uncovered so we can go through that, to be honest, if I remember. So if you can take up the responsibility, and in my last day, which will be on Friday, if you remind me, I will do that. Are you going to perform question in Excel? Yes. Not in Microsoft Excel, rather, I will use the Campus Insight, which has a similar platform that you are looking in your final exam. So this will be more helpful. And one of my key objectives for this session will be to cover these questions in the CBE environment. So now let's move on. Now with this, my introduction points of F5 is completed. I will be discussing my first topic, and that is the activity-based costing. Let me open the slides. So, first of all, please note that you may not have the access of costing presentations. Am I right? Am I right? Okay, you do have. Yes, you have all the slides through your email, right? Okay, that will be good then. Because there were some problems while uploading the slides of costing in the GoToWebinar. But yes, you all should have your email in which all the resource material of these slides are available. So you can refer it back again after this webinar as well. Now, in the costing sections, we will be discussing the advanced costing methods. But there should be something traditional going on, and there will be some problems in the traditional, and that is why the need for an advanced costing technique comes in. So for activity-based costing, the traditional costing technique that we used to perform was absorption and marginal costing. So absorption costing says that the production fixed overhead should be part of product cost. Whereas marginal costing says that the production overhead should be treated as period cost. Treated as period cost. That means, according to the absorption costing, product cost is equals to product fixed cost and product variable cost. Whereas as far as marginal costing is concerned, production cost is equals to product variable cost only. So that means the difference in absorption margin is fixed, because in absorption we have variable plus fixed, whereas in marginal we only have variable. So variable is common. The difference between the two costing methods is the adoption of fixed cost. So this is a brief illustration of how the absorption costing looks like. So if a product cost is determined based on product cost, it will look like that we have direct material cost, direct labor cost. When we sum that, it will be prime cost. So if we add variable overhead and then most importantly fixed overhead, my total full product cost will be known as cost based on absorption costing. Now, my further discussion will be, how did I calculate this fixed overhead per unit, the $3 per unit? So let's move on. First of all, the production cost includes two different types of cost. One is direct and the other costs are indirect. Now, the direct costs are directly charged to the product. So for example, for a shoe manufacturer, a pair of shoes is his product, his final cost unit. Now, as far as indirect cost is concerned, so these costs are first charged to departments known as cost centers. Then what we do, we reapportion the cost of Department C, for example, to Department A and B. This is because this Department C is known as service cost center. So service cost center is a production or service location in which not physical production are happening. Instead, these departments are helping or supporting those other departments who are actually producing the unit. And finally, from these departments, we charge the overhead to the product. This is how absorption costing works. Now, how do we determine the overhead absorption rate? So the overhead absorption rate will be the budgeted production overhead divided by the budgeted activity level. This is how we calculate the overhead absorption rate. OAR stands for overhead absorption rate. So to calculate the overhead absorption rate, the first thing that we need to do is we need to choose an appropriate basis for overhead absorption. So any question up till now? Any question? Okay. Please discuss any detailed question on that. Dear, we will be discussing some questions on each and every topic. Yes, one of the students has asked me that OAR comes under absorption costing, right? Yes, this is right. This is absolutely right. So now let's move on. So let's see an example for that. Now, an XYZ Limited manufactured 3 products A, B, and C. Data for the period just ended as follows. So we have 20,000 units, 25,000 units for B, and 2,000 units for C. Sales price is $20 each. We have been provided with the material cost and labor hour per unit. The total production overhead for XYZ Limited amount to 190,000. And now in this we have to calculate the profit per unit obtained on each product. Now, to calculate the profit per unit on each product, we have to identify the full product cost per unit. And as far as full product cost is concerned, we have, for example, for A, $5 cost of material. A required 2 labor hours and the hourly rate is 5, that is $10. That means we have a variable cost of $15. Similarly, we can say 10 plus 5, so this is also 15. And this will also be 15. But we have to include fixed overhead per unit as well. And for that, first of all, we will be calculating the overhead absorption rate. And for overhead absorption rate, we require an appropriate basis. And we have been told that the overheads are absorbed on the basis of labor hours. So first of all, we will be calculating the labor hours. So for A, it is 20,000 units. Each unit require how much? 2 labor hours, that is 40,000 hours. B require 25,000 units, multiply by 1, that is 25,000 hours. And C is 2,000. Hence the total will be 67,000. This will be my total budgeted labor hours. Now, my OAR will be 1,90,000 divided by 67,000. So what is the answer? Can anybody calculate it? Anybody? $2.8358. So what I will do, I will round it off to 2 decimal places, and that will be 2.84. But this is per labor hour. Now I will charge to the product. So A require 2 hours. So if I multiply the rate of 2.84 into 2, for product A, overheads will be how much? 2.84 into 2, how much will be the answer? Yes, 5.67. 5.67. It will be 2.84 for B because there is only 1 hour, and 2.84 for C. Now that will mean my total cost per unit will be 15 plus 5.67, that will be 20.67. It is 17.67 for B and 17.67 for C. Now if I calculate it or subtract this cost with my price, so product A will have a loss of 0.67. B has a profit of 2.33 and C will also have a profit of 2.33. So this will be the answer. Any question up till now? One of the students has asked me, please can you walk through again? Walking on what? On my system, on my laptop? Okay, I will. To calculate the profit per unit, I have to subtract the full product cost from the selling price. So the formula will be selling price minus cost. So for that, I had calculated the cost per unit. And for cost per unit, we have been provided with the material and labor hours. So if I multiply the labor hour with the hourly rate, I get the labor cost per unit. And when I add the material cost per unit, my answer is $15 for product A. Now, we have to absorb overheads. So for this, we have calculated the total labor hour so that we can calculate the OAR. And the OAR was 2.84. Now, when I charge this OAR into the product, because product A required 2 hours, so I have multiplied 2.84 with 2. And the answer is 5.67. Similarly, I have calculated the overhead for B and C. And when I included the overhead in the material and labor cost, the answer is 20.67 for A, 17.67 for B and C. And when I subtract this total cost per unit with the selling price, I have the answer of loss of 0.67 in A and 2.33 profit on the other two products. Is this okay? Okay, then let's move on. Let's move on. Now, the other traditional costing that we will be revising over here is marginal costing. And as we had discussed, that marginal costing means that only variable production cost will be included. So if we see the cost card based on the marginal costing, we will find material and labor, that is the prime cost, and the variable overheads. So there is no value, no area for fixed overhead. The basic premise is from the marginal costing is that there is a concept of contribution. So the contribution is equals to selling price per unit minus all variable cost per unit. And this is how we present that. Now let's discuss the activity-based costing. But by this time, do you have any question? If you have, please ask. Yes, we can calculate the contribution by adding the fixed cost in the profit. Yes, we can do that. One of the students has asked me to lecture in U2. Dear, the mode of communication for this prepare to pass will be in English because there will be a lot of international students who will be attending this session. Now, the activity-based costing. So to start it, what is the problem with the absorption costing? The problem with the absorption costing is that it uses one universal OAR based on machine or labor hours. So we calculate the total overheads and charge to the product based on one basis, that is either the labor hours or sometimes it is the machine hours. Now the implication is that overheads are now volume related. So more overheads will be charged to those products which are high in volume. Although sometimes low volume products are more technical and more difficult to do. So how traditional costing works? We have different types of cost. We charge all these costs to a cost center, the department, suppose production department A, and then we calculate the OAR. And generally, if it is a complex process, it is based on machine hours. If it is lesser complex, it is based on labor hours. Generally, this is the case. But what activity-based costing said? First of all, it says that the overheads are not volume related. They are not volume related. Instead, nowadays, the production process is complex, and not only complex, it is also diversified. So these complex processes require more services or support functions than ever before. So what happened in the activity-based costing is that we had incurred different activities, and each activity has consumed its cost. We then identify the appropriate cost driver for that. And we have the OAR for each activity. The more appropriate word of OAR over here will be ABR. ABR. ABR stands for activity-based rate. Now, let's see how to perform these steps while solving the activity-based costing. So the first step is, first of all, we group overheads into activity cost pools. Then what we do, we identify significant factors these driving these costs, and these are known as cost drivers. So for example, if the cost is production setup, the appropriate cost driver will be number of setups. Then we calculate the cost per unit of each activity, and this will be known as activity-based rate. And then finally what we do, we absorb activity cost based on usage of drivers. Let's see the example. Now, the requirement is using activity-based costing, show the cost and gross profit per unit of each product during the period, and constrains this with the profit calculated using absorption costing. So once again, we have to calculate the profit per unit just like the previous example, but the difference over here is that in previous example, we have calculated the overhead based on absorption costing, whereas over here, we have been advised to calculate the overhead based on activity-based costing. So now please read the incomplete information, and then we will discuss it further. Now, with this question, this is almost the same question. And now with this question, we have a bifurcation of all the overheads. So if I have to do that, my selling price of each product, the products are A, B, and C, is same, that is 20. Material cost is 5 for A and 10 for B and C. The labor cost is 2 into 5, that is $10 for A, and it is 5 for B and 5 for C. But now let's come to the overheads. Now because these overheads are, what are these? They are now to be charged based on activity-based costing. So let's see how do I work out that. So we have different activities. And what are these? It is machining, quality control and setup. So I will write machining, quality control and setup, receiving and packing. One of the students has requested me, sir, can you please solve it on Excel so that we can understand how to solve these types of questions on Excel? Sure I can, but why I'm doing it on a page and is because this is the costing section, the costing topic, which includes ABC, target, life cycle, and throughput. These are the kind of topics that are more likely to appear in either section A or B. So they are more likely to be tested in objective tests or OT cases. So this is the reason that I was doing it on the paper, but for you, I will. If you then just wait for a while. So here it is. I have opened an Excel sheet for you. Now let's perform that. So there will be a selling price. Then we have a material cost and also the labor cost, and we also need look for the overheads. We are working out for 3 products A, B, and C, and all these workings will be in dollars. Now, my selling price for each product will be $20 each. Material cost is $5 for A, $10 for B, and $10 for C. The labor cost is 2 hours for A, and each labor hour is $5. It is 1 into 5 for B and 1 into 5 for C. Now let's cover the overheads. So for overheads, first of all, I will be writing the activities. So the activities over here is machining, quality control, Then we are receiving and packing. Now I have to select the cost driver. Now if you see the list, the cost driver for machining looks like number of machine hours. So number of machine hours. For quality control, it should be number of production runs. For receiving cost, it will be number of component seats. And for packing, it will be number of customer. So now we will be estimating the APR. But for APR, we have the activity cost, but we have to estimate the cost driver, so which is machine hours. So there are three products, product A, B, and product C. To calculate the machine hour, what we have to do is we have to multiply the units with the machine hour per unit. So in the data we have been told that there are 20,000 units of A, 25,000 units of B, and 2,000 units of C. And machine hour per unit is 2 for each. That means the machine hour will be 20,000 multiplied by 2. And I will copy and then paste it. Finally, my total material will be, total machine hours rather will be 94,000. So my ABR will be machining cost, which is 55,000 divided by the total machine hour, which is 94,000. So it will be 0.58511. Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, similarly, we can calculate the quality control cost, but for quality control cost, I will be requiring the number of production runs. So now let's calculate the number of, no, I don't need to, it is very simple. So the number of production runs are 10 for A, 13 for B, and 2 for C. So the total will be 25. So quality control cost will be equal 90,000 divided by 25. So it is 3,600. Similarly, we can calculate it for receiving cost, and receiving cost is 30,000, and the number of component receipts will be 22. It will be equal 30,000 divided by 22. And finally, the packing cost, which is 15,000 divided by the number of customer orders, and these are, if I total it, it will be 60. So the activity based rate will be 250. Now when I charge to the product, there are three different products. I will get its overheads. So for A, it will be overhead rate multiplied by machine hours. For B, it will be overhead multiplied by their machine hours. And for C, it will be similarly, we can calculate it for quality control cost. Now, the quality control cost is how much? It is 90,000. Sorry, it is 3,600. And the quality controls were 10, 13, and 2. So it will be equal 10 multiplied by the rate equal 13 multiplied by the rate and equal to multiplied by the ABR of quality control, and these will be the answers. Similarly for the component receipt, so it will be ABR multiplied by the number of components receipt, and these are 10 for A, it will be 10 for B, and it will be 2 for C. Same goes for the packing cost, so it will be 20 each. Now I can have the total of overhead, that will be 5214.22. So if I copy, sorry, I have made the wrong total. I have to do the total in for product A, so it will be equal sum 78040.6. When I copy and paste it, I will get the total answers for product B and C. But these are total. We are required to calculate the per unit. So to calculate the per unit, it will be the total overheads divided by the number of units. And the number of units are 20,000. For A, it will be 25,000 for B, and finally this will be how much it was? 2,000 for C. Hence, my profit per unit using this method will be equal selling price minus material minus labor overheads. And when I copy and then paste it, I will have the answers of this one. So this is the profit per unit using activity based costing. Have you all understood that? There is one question. Can such a question come in section B? Yes, it can come in section B. In fact, it is most likely that such question will appear in section B. So this is how we do the activity based costing. Now our next topic will be the target costing, but we will be having a couple of minutes break, that is around 2 to 3 minutes, and when we come back we will start discussing the questions of target costing or the topic of target costing. So just a couple of minutes break. Okay, now let's discuss the topic of target costing. So once again, we will see what traditionally was happening. So traditionally what we do, we first cost our product, then we add the markup, that is the profit, and we get the selling price. So for example, we have made a product for suppose $80. We add a profit of $20 and we get a price of $100. This is what we do traditionally. Now the targets over here, the focus was internal. So while setting the price, what I'm focusing is that what is the cost of my product and what should be my profit. So I have not taken any expectation from the customer. So all my focus in tradition is internal. But what happened in the target costing is, first of all, we identify the price. Then we estimate the profit, and finally, then we get the cost. So with this, our focus is external. This is because we first estimate that at the price at which the customer is willing to buy. So for example, if the customers are willing to buy at $90 and our shareholder expect to get the profit of $20, that means I have a target that I have to complete my products at $70. So my focus, my point to start was external. Now, let's see the target costing steps. So first of all, we estimate a market-driven selling price for a new product. Then, we reduce the figure by the firm's required level of profit. And finally, we produce the target cost. So for example, we estimated that the selling price should be $90. The required level of profit is suppose $20. So the target cost will be $70. Now, I will try to reduce the cost to provide a product that meets the target cost. So this is how I perform the target cost. This one step that I have missed is the calculation of cost gap. The cost gap. So please note that it will be estimated cost minus target cost. So for example, the estimated cost of this product is $80 and the target cost that I have calculated is $70. So the cost gap will be $10. So I will try my best to reduce this cost gap or eliminate this cost gap before making the product. Now, let's see the example. ABC Limited, a sports good manufacturer, is about to launch a new model of tennis racket on which it requires a pre-tax ROI return on investment of 30%. Building and equipment needed for the production are to cost £5 million rather. So there is just a bit of a confusion that few of the information is in pound and the other are in dollar. So just make it dollar. All this information is in dollar rather. The expected sales level are 40,000 rackets per annum at a selling price of 67.5 rackets. So for my solution, it will be, my target price will be 67.5. This will be my target price. Then I will identify the target profit. So my target profit will be $5 million into 30%. Hence my target profit will be 1.5 million. But this is the profit for the whole year. Now in the whole year, I have to produce 40,000 units. That means my per unit profit will be 37.5. That means my target profit will be 37.5. So if I subtract the target profit from my target price, I will get the answer of $30, which is this $30 is this is the target cost. Have you understood that? Is there any question on target costing? Explain this again. And one of the students has asked me, why do you involve ROI? Okay. So first of all, we have to calculate the target cost, and the formula for target cost is target price or the estimated selling price minus target profit. So the selling price was 67.5. Now to estimate the profit, the data that we have provided is about the return on investment. Now because the data to calculate the profit in the example was based on return on investment, that is why I have used that. So it has said that it requires a pre-tax ROI of 30%. So my investment was 5 million. So that means on 5 million, my required level of profit is 30%, and that will be 1.5 million. But that 1.5 million will be for the whole year. Now, in the whole year, I'm producing 40,000 units. That means my profit per unit will be 37.5. So when I subtract the 37.5 profit from the price of 67.5, I will get the answer of $30, which is the target cost. One of the students has asked me, why don't you just use profit markup or margin? Here it depends on the example, it depends on the information, and that is where the examiner is curious to see that. So the main point is to identify a target cost, you have to subtract the target price from an estimated target profit from an estimated price. And the calculation of target profit in this example is based on ROI. So we have to look for the information in the question. Rather, we just make a formula for ourselves and fix it that the profit will always be on markup or margin. So that won't be the case always. There is other question that how to calculate margin or markup. Okay. As far as margin or markup is concerned, I have included few questions in my exam standard, and we will discuss at that point. I'm trying to avoid the work which is duplicate. Talking about the cost gap for this question. So dear, this is an example in which I have only been asked to estimate the target cost. If the data is provided for the estimation of cost, I will then can only be calculate the cost gap. So this is just an example. Now, one of the question is that if in question are given labor hours and machine hours, then which one to take for overhead absorption rate? For this, I advise you to use the guidance that you have covered in F2. So you have been told in the exam that which basis should you use to calculate the OAR. So don't worry about that. Once again, a student has asked me the indication of using markup or margin. As I said earlier, that I have included a question that relates to markup and margin, and I will discuss your point at that time. Now let's discuss how to close the cost gap. So the ways to reduce the cost gap is we can do value analysis. And in the value analysis, we try to cut down those components, those features that do not add value, hence reduce the cost. Then we can see whether any labor savings can be made or not. Can the productivity be improved or not? How can we achieve the economies of scale? We can also reduce the cost by reviewing the supply chain. We can also see that whether any material can be eliminated or not. Or we can see that whether a cheaper material be substituted without affecting the quality or not. A couple of questions once again from the students. One has asked me that what are the benefits of using target costing at the planning stage? Dear, this topic relates to not just target costing but also the life cycle costing. So I will be answering it when we discuss the life cycle costing, because we need to see what the life cycle cost is. And what is economies of scale? So economies of scales means sometimes we made our production that much huge that our cost per unit will be minimum, because at such higher level of production my material cost per unit will be cheaper at that point. My fixed overhead cost per unit will be divided into so many units, so high number of units, that its per unit has fallen. The other way to reduce the cost gap is that we can see that can part assembled component be bought in to save on assembly time or sometimes the cost. So sometimes the same assembled part is available from an outside supplier at a cheaper price. So we can do that as well. Then can the incidences of the cost driver be reduced so that we can reduce the overall cost? So these are the few tips that will help us to reduce the cost gap. Because remember, if we be able to reduce our cost gap will also be reduced. One of the students has asked me, what does labor saving means? Dear, labor saving means that if my labor starts to work efficiently, then this labor will consume less time, and less time means the labor cost on that unit will be lower. Similarly, maybe by training the labor, they can achieve productivity, resulting in lower labor cost per unit. One of the students has asked me, sir, please also discuss the usage of costing techniques in service industries. Dear, all the costing techniques that we cover are also usable in the service organizations. However, as far as target costing is concerned, it is difficult to adopt that. It is difficult to adopt that. So one of the students has asked me that labor saving also means learning curve. Yes, it could be. It could be the cause of reducing the labor cost. We can try to increase the learning. Now let's discuss the life cycle cost. Now in the life cycle cost, the main premise over here is the profiling of cost over a product's life, including the pre-production stage. So what we do in the life cycle costing is that we calculate the total cost per unit by, first of all, in units we will take the total units of whole life. And as far as total cost is concerned, it is once again over whole life. That means track and accumulate the actual cost and revenues attributable to each product from inception to abandonment. This enables the product's true profitability to be determined at the end of its economic life. So this is the way to assess the true profitability of a product. So this is what lifestyle costing is about. First of all, we have a development phase. And in development phase, we generally do research and development. So the product is not launched yet. That means there is no sales revenue and we have a cost only phase. Then we have an introduction phase in which the product is launched. Then we have a growth phase where our sales starts to increase steeply, and so do my profits. Then there is a maturity phase at which my sales will be at peak, and so do my profits. And finally, the decline phase where the sale has started to drop and as well as its profits. So these are the phases for a product life. Do you have any question on that? Do you have any question on that? A couple of points. Can you please repeat the name of the software that you are going to use instead of Excel, and also please tell us from where we get that? Dear, you can log on to acca.campusinsight.net. I will write it over here. It will be ACCA dot campus insight .net. You can go and sign up over here, and then you have the access of all these questions. Okay. The other question is, sir, through graph, is it lost in development stage? Yes. This is because there is no sales in the development phase. The only cost is R&D. So if you make an income statement purely on development phase, it will be lost. However, the basic premise over here is that we do not take the profitability on each phase. Rather, we take the profitability over its whole life. A little elaboration on decline phase. Dear, on decline phase, the product life is about to end. And in such situations, its sales started to drop. So for example, when a company launches a mobile, so recently Samsung has launched a year back, Samsung has launched its mobile called Samsung Galaxy S8. Now, first of all, the company had developed this mobile phone. Then the company had launched it. Afterward, the sales of Galaxy S8 starts to grow very rapidly. Then the sales of Galaxy S8 will be at its peak. And finally, the customers has lesser interest in the Galaxy S8, so the sales of Galaxy S8 will start to decline. Are there any costs that are not included when you are calculating the life cycle cost per unit? No, I don't think so. Instead, to calculate the life cycle cost per unit, we use the total cost. And one of the students has asked me that, sir, any question on the life cycle costing? Yes, these are. If you people can wait a bit, after completing my throughput accounting topic, we will be going to some exam standard questions from the campus insight I have just written on that. So we will be discussing these questions. So don't worry about that. Now, let's discuss the final topic of throughput. The reason I'm throwing my topics over here is that I want to spend more time on doing practice questions. Where can we get some of your questions? Dear, first of all, as far as examples are concerned, then the slides has been shared to you, and you can have access to these examples. As far as the exam standard questions is concerned, then you will be provided with the login details of Campus Insight, and if you haven't yet, you can still go to acca.campusinsight.net. Now, what is the background of throughput? The background of throughput was the application of key factor analysis to production bottleneck. And production bottleneck means limiting factor. A limiting factor. So the background over here is the limiting factor analysis. The throughput says that the only total variable cost are the purchase cost of raw material. So according to the throughput, all the labor and overheads are fixed. That means labor and overheads, we call it conversion cost, is fixed. Right? So throughput says that the direct labor costs are not wholly variable. So that means throughput is equals to sales revenue minus material cost. Now, let's see the concept of throughput accounting, the bottleneck resource. So what happened over here is we have three different divisions. First is material preparation, and material preparation division can produce 100 units per hour. Then we have component preparation division, and component preparation can produce 50 units each hour. And then come to the final assembly, which produces 100 units per hour. So each of our final product will first goes into material preparation department, then into component preparation, and then into final assembly. So can you please tell me that in an hour, how many units can be produced? How many units can be produced? Anyone? $50. Most of the students who has answered me is 50. So why 50? One of the students has asked me, are non-production costs included as fixed costs as well? Well, if the non-production cost is of overheads, then it will be. And one of the students asked me about the buffer inventory. There won't be any issue of the buffer inventory, by the way. The issue over here is that how many units can we be able to produce in an hour? This is because the component preparation can only produce 50 units. So even if we be able to produce 100 units in an hour, I can further process 50 units in component preparation. Similarly, although final assembly has the capacity to produce 100 units in an hour, but this department will receive only 50 units per hour. So the final assembly can only process 50 units in each hour. That means my production is limited by this department. Hence, this component preparation department will be my bottleneck. This is a bottleneck. One of the students has asked me, what about the theory of constraint? Dear, this whole topic is called, this whole circumstance is called the theory of constraint. The theory of constraint. Now, let's see the throughput accounting ratio. The throughput accounting ratio, the first of all, to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, we will be calculating the throughput per bottleneck resource. This is also known as return per factory hour. Return per factory hour. Now this can be calculated as throughput divided by time on key resource. So this will be the formula to calculate the throughput per bottleneck resource or return per factory hour. Then the calculation of cost per factory hour. Now the cost per factory hour can be calculated as conversion cost divided by time on key resource. Conversion cost divided by time on key resource. Shadib Akhtar has asked me about TQM, just in time, in throughput accounting. Yes, these are also important, but as I stated at the start of my topic, that we will only be covering the key areas of the syllabus. So this is not a complete session, this is a revision session. That is why I'm focusing on the key areas of the topic. Then Mustafa Shabir, a student, has asked me, what do you mean by the time on key resource? The time on key resource means the time on bottleneck. The time on bottleneck. So time on key resource means the bottleneck time. So conversion cost means all production costs excluding material. And then the throughput accounting ratio can then be return per factory hour divided by the conversion cost per factory hour. Can we say conversion cost is fixed cost? Yes. This is what actually throughput accounting advocates. It says all the conversion cost is actually the fixed cost. This is what throughput accounting advocates. Now let's see the example over here. So please read the example. And from the example, we will be calculating the throughput accounting ratio for the key resource for an average hour. So we will be calculating the throughput accounting ratio from this example. So please read this example. Now, in this example, the first thing that we need to identify is which machine is my bottleneck. Remember that the machine that produces lesser units will be the bottleneck. So we have three machines, machine X, Y, and Z. Let's see which one will be the bottleneck. So it will be machine X, machine Y, and machine Z. Now X produces a 4-frame panel, but because of its old machinery, it also loses the capacity of 20 units. So 180 units was the total capacity, but 20 units were lost. That means its capacity will be 160. Now each TRL, the trolley, require 4 panels. That means that the work of 40 trolleys can be done in machine X. In machine Y, it is 52, and in machine Z, it is 30. Now, because machine Z produces less units, this produces less units, hence machine Z is the bottleneck. It is the bottleneck resource. Now to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, what are the steps? So first of all, we will be calculating the throughput per unit. Throughput per unit. This can be by selling price, which is, how much is the selling price? It is $2,000 minus the material cost of 600. So it will be 2,000 minus 600. So the throughput per unit is 1,400. Now because the data is in weeks, so we want to calculate the throughput per week because the time is in weeks. Time is in week. So we will calculate what would be the throughput in a week. Now there are 1,400 is the throughput per unit, and in a week we can produce 30 units. That means in the whole week, my total throughput will be how much? If I use the calculator, it will be 1,400 into 30. It will be 42,000. It will be 42,000. This 42,000 is throughput per week. And the time or key resource is week. Now we will calculate the conversion cost per week. So we have 4 different types of cost. One is labor and variable overheads. So labor and variable overheads. And these are 5,500 and 8,000. 5,500, 8,000. But there are 2 more costs. One is fixed production cost and the other one is admin cost. So fixed overheads and admin. Now the fixed overheads are 450,000. So this is per annum. Now to calculate it per week, I will divide it to number of weeks, and there are 48 weeks in a year. So I will divide it by 48. I will have the answer of how much? It will be 9375. Similarly, admin cost is how much? It is 265,000. So this will be 265,000 divided by 48. The answer will be how much? 5520.83. So this is the whole conversion cost per week. So if I total it, what would be the answer? It will be 5520.83 plus 9375 plus 8000 plus 5500. So it will be 28395.83. So this will be conversion cost per week. Now, as both the informations are in per week form, so if I take the ratio, that is dividing the 42,000 by 28395.83, the answer will be how much? 48,000 divided by 28395.83. It will be 1.69. So 1.69 will be my throughput accounting ratio. The student has asked me, is this a section C question or B of the paper-based exam? Dear, this is just an example to understand how to calculate the throughput accounting ratio. Otherwise, there are more chances that from this section we will find a section B question. The other question is, why did you multiply the 1400 by 30? This is because I am calculating on per week basis. So this is throughput per unit. Now I can produce 30 units in a whole week. That means in my complete week, my total throughput will be 42,000. So to get that, I have to multiply. So I have not divided by 30 because this is per unit. 1400 is per unit. And this is 30 units per week. This is something like sometimes you have been provided with hours per unit and sometimes you have been given with the data of units per hour. So this is something when you have been provided with the data of units per hour. And in such situations, you will not divide, instead you will multiply. Have you understood that? Dear, this is the same way. You can either calculate it on week or even on hour. You can do that in both ways. The basic premise over here is that this throughput is per week and we have calculated the conversion cost per week. Now, and the answer is 1.69. If we be able to calculate the throughput per hour, then we should also require to calculate the conversion cost per hour. And we can do that, by the way. Do you want me to do that or not? Now, one of the students has asked me, why did you divide 48,000 by the conversion cost? Here I have divided 42,000 by the conversion cost. I think. Let me check. 42,000 divided by 28395.83. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Talha. It was my mistake. I should have divided by 42,000 and rather by mistake I have divided by 48,000. So the answer will be 1.48. Yes, thank you, Talha. Yes, there are a couple of students who has picked my mistake. It was just a calculation error. One of the students has asked me that how did you calculate the 20 units on machine X? Okay, dear, in the example we have been told that on average between 50 and 20 hours of production are lost per month. Oops, these are hours, by the way. So this is a mistake. I thought it was units. I really need a tea break. So this calculation should be revised. Let's see whether there is a change on the bottleneck process or not. Now 180 units can be produced in a week and a week contains 40 hours. That means in an hour 4.5 panels can be made. 4.5 panels can be made. This is 4.5 panels per hour. Now, we can lose 20 hours per month. Now, 20 hours per month means 5 hours per week. That means in 5 hours, how many units do I lost? How many units do I lost? It will be 4.5 into 5, it will be 22.5. It will be 22.5. So now instead of 20, if I use 22.5, the answer will be 157.5. And if I divide it by 40, divided by 4, it will be 39.37. 39.375. So this will be the right calculation, and still machine Z will be my bottleneck. After rectifying the calculation, machine Z will be my bottleneck. Yes, we do need to calculate the lost units. It was just my reading mistake. Okay, I will explain it again. Look, in the question it has said, I hope you are talking about machine X. So in the question we have been told that machine X can produce 180 panels per week, right? Now, in the data, we have also been told that 20 hours per month can be lost. Now, there are 4 weeks in an hour. So if I divide it by 4, then it means 5 hours per week. Now 180 units can be produced in the whole week, that is 40 hours. So that means 180 units can be produced in 40 hours. So the answer will be 4.5 units per hour. But in a week, I will not get the whole 40 hours because 5 hours will be lost. I will only get the 35 hours, the remaining one. So if I multiply the 35 with 4.5, 4.5 multiplied by 35, the answer is 157.5. That means I can work out 157.5 panels. Now each trolley takes 4 panels. That means I can work out 39.375 trolleys. One of the students has asked me, why are you not using 15 hours? Dear, this is because we have been provided with the range. So I am checking whether if my maximum hours lost, even then will it be my safety stock or not? This is about more of a prudence concept. He has asked another question. Asked me, why you multiplied by 35? Dear, we have 40 hours in a week, but we have lost 5 hours. So that means in a week, machine X can work 35 hours and not 40. Is it clear? Now, how do we do the multiple product decisions? So what we do, we rank the product by looking at the throughput per hour of the bottleneck resource time. That means we calculate the throughput accounting ratio of each product and then we rank it. It is important to note that throughput accounting ratio should be greater than 1. So if throughput accounting ratio is less than 1, this means that production is financially not feasible. So we should not make such products. Now let's see the example of a multiple product. So please read this example. So now let's discuss this question. By the way, video was not stuck. I had switched it off for a while so that you can read the information of this question. One of the students asked me that if no data is provided, open it over here, that if no data is provided, how can we identify the bottleneck resource? Dear, either you have been provided with the data to identify the bottleneck resource, or in the exam, the examiner himself will tell you which is the bottleneck. So even in this example, we have been told that material L is in short supply. So we have been told that material L is my bottleneck. Now for that, what we do, we calculate the throughput per unit first. So throughput per unit will be the selling price minus the material cost, and all three types of material will be subtracted. So can you please tell me what is the throughput per unit of Adams, James and Luke? Please calculate it for me. Please calculate the throughput per unit for Adams, James and Luke. $90 for Adams, okay. What about James and Luke? $165 for James and 95 for Luke. Am I correct? So it's good to see few active students, by the way. So now my next step will be to calculate the throughput per kg. Now the throughput per kg is because this time material L is my bottleneck. So I have to calculate first of all, I have to calculate the number of kgs to produce Adam. So Adam costs $70 and each material of L costs $10 per kg. That means we require 7 kg for Adam. Similarly, 9 kg for James and 4 kg for Luke. Now if I divide the throughput by this value of 7, it will be how much? Mustafa is saying it is 12.85. Okay. 18.33 for James. 18.33 for James. And for Luke, it is 12.86. Now what we do, we will rank them. So this will be my rank 1. Sorry, James is 18.33. 18.33. Yes, James is 18.33. What about the Adams? It was 12.85. And what about Luke? Luke is 23.75. Okay. I was relying on the calculation of students. So this will be correct. Hence, my ranking will then be number 1 is Luke, number 2 is James, and if we have left with the resources, we will produce Adams. Now, am I correct this time or not? Am I correct? Okay. Now I will make a production plan. So first of all, I will produce Luke. So this will be 350. Each unit of Luke require 4 kg. That means I will be using 1400 kg to produce Luke. Then I will produce James. So 400 units. Each unit will require 9 kg. That means how much will I use? How much will I use? 3600. That means by producing these 2 units, I would have used 5000 kg. And I will be left with only 2000 kg. Am I correct? Am I correct? Now, that means I can only produce that much unit of Adams of which I have the material. So I have 2000 kg of material and each unit takes 7 kg. That means how many units can I produce? Two 85.71. Remember that in case of units, we will always round down. So this will be 285 units. This will be 285 units. So this will be my production plan. One of the students has asked me, what about the 50 batches of the important customer? Dear, these 50 batches are already included. So my production plan has already crossed 50 batches in each case. 50 batches in each case. So this will not affect. This will not affect my production. One of them has asked me to recalculate 285. Here it is 2000 divided by 7. It is 2000 divided by 7. Dear, rather it says that this 50 units has already included in these. Now, because we are producing more than 50 batches in each product, so this won't affect me. Okay, Astra Ahmed says that it mentions in the question that the maximum demand does not include the contract. Dear, then it means the units of Luke will not be 350, rather it will be 400. Similarly, units of James will not be 400, rather it will be 450. If it says that these contacts are not included. Gilbert Joy has asked me, what about the throughput accounting ratio? Dear, the throughput accounting ratio can then be calculated as the throughput per hour, that is return per factory hour, divided by its conversion cost. Now, from this, its ranking will not change. So I can calculate it for you. But for this, I am doing it on a separate sheet because this sheet has already been messed up. So we have three products, A, J, and L. A, J, and L. The throughput that we have calculated over here is throughput per kg, that is 12.85, 12.85, 18.33, and 23.75. Now, my total labor and fixed cost are 41 for A per unit, that is 21 plus 20, then 108 for J, so it will be 108, and for L it is 82. So if I multiply it with the number of units, which is 500 for A, 400 and 350, to calculate the total conversion cost, it will be how much? 41 into 500, it will be 20,500. Similarly, 108 into 400, it will be 43,200. And for L, it will be 82 into 350, it will be 28,700. And when I total it, it will be 28,700 plus 43200 plus 20500. The total will be 92,400. But this is the total overhead cost, the total conversion cost based on 7,000 kg. So if I divide it by 7,000, the answer will be 13.2. The answer will be 13.2. Now, if I divide it by 13.2 each, you can see because the value of the denominator is same, so it will not affect the ranking. So the lesson to learn over here is that in the multiple product situation, we will only be calculating the throughput accounting ratio when asked by the examiner. Otherwise, we will skip that because it will not affect my ranking. The extra unit effect is very simple. If he has told that these 50 units are additional batches in the demand, then it means my total demand will not be 500, rather it will be 550. It will be 450 for James and 400 for Luke. This is how it could be. Now let's move on, because I have to complete the topic with some objective test. So I'm moving on. So how to improve the throughput accounting ratio? Yes, Mohammed Idlal. Yes, we should. So we can improve the throughput accounting ratio, first of all, by increase the sales price to increase the throughput per unit. Then we can also try to reduce the operating expense, because reducing the operating expense will reduce the cost per hour. We can also try to improve the productivity, that is reducing the time required to make each unit of product, because this will help us to produce more units. One of them is missing. We can also try to reduce the material cost, of course, if possible. Yes. Thank you, Panil. I had missed that advice while making my slides. So please note that. We can also do this by reducing the material cost. Yes. And that is where the third points come from. That is improving the productivity. The point that you are raising, Ramiz, is improving the productivity. Now, let's discuss some exam standard questions. So please wait a while. Now let's discuss some exam standard questions. So this is the questions from the campus inside that I have discussed earlier. So the first question is, identify one of the following options given in the diagram by clicking to suggest the main reason for development of activity-based costing. And the correct answer is A. And the A option says, which is already put the cross mark on that, it is the overhead costs are larger proportion than the traditional manufacturing techniques. So this is the reason that we use activity-based costing. Yes, Rumiz, it is very small to read, but when you access your campus inside at your own, you can read it easily. Aram has asked me, please guide from where do we get the questions after signing in, as I am unable to see the questions. Dear, first of all, you can go on the left side, you can find a tab QTB dashboard. On the left side, you will find a tab named QTB dashboard. Click on that. Once you click on that, you will find a welcome page. You will find a welcome page. And on the welcome page, on the top, there is a heading, student paper. So when you click on the heading of student paper, your paper, the desired paper, that is F5, will appear. So you can click that and you can start that. You can have then all these questions. So this is a true-false question. The following statement have been made about ABC. Mark whether they are correct or incorrect. So the first one, ABC is useful in service industries as well as in manufacturing industry. So this statement is correct. So this is true. The traditional absorption costing tends to underestimate overhead costs for high volume products. So this is false. This is because instead traditional absorption costing tends to overestimate overhead for high volume products, not underestimate. So this statement is false. Now let's look at the third question. The activity-based costing is based upon which of the following idea? And the correct option is D. That is, not all activities are value adding, and so activities must be examined split up according to their ability to add value. So the correct option should be D. Now this is the question on target costing, and we have been asked what will be the estimated cost gap. So in the question we have been told that the target cost is 601.25, the estimated cost of material is $400, labor costs required per unit are 3 labor hours paid at an hourly rate of $30. That means the labor cost is $90. And the OAR per labor hour is $25 per labor hour. The machining cost is $70 per unit. So if I estimate the total cost, it will be $400 for material, for labor it will be $90. This is by 3 hours into 30 per hour. Overheads will be 75, and once again this is by 3 into 25, and there is a machining cost which is how much? 70. Now if I total all these 4 costs, how much it will be? $635. Okay, $635. So 635 is my estimated cost, but my target cost was 601.25. So if I subtract 601.25, my cost gap will be how much? 33.75. So the correct answer should be C, 33.75. So let's move to the next question. Which of the following two measures will help to reduce the cost gap? What about the last line in the question? Dear, the last line says that the machining cost is a direct expense. Actually, the whole conclusion over here is that the machining cost is the direct expense. Because there could be a point that $70 is how much? Will the $70 is already included in the overhead or not? So this is over here it has mentioned. Mustafa has asked me quite a lot of time any prediction for 2018 March attempt. I was ignoring this question intentionally. Dear, this is CBE. Every student has different exam to perform. So not all the students have same questions. Different students sitting in the exam have different questions. Now, that means we cannot assess. Dear, in my opinion, as I haven't done research on that, because here in Pakistan, now all the exams are in CBE, so I haven't done any research on that which topic is important for March 2018 attempt. Okay? So, I'm sorry that I cannot answer that. Now, which of the following two measures will help to reduce the cost gap efficiently? And the correct answer is A and B. A and B. This is because in C, postponing training staff is not an efficient technique to cut down the cost. And also flexibility in material usage. Flexibility in material usage may cause the effect of increased material usage, resulting in higher cost per unit and an increased cost gap, not the reduced cost gap. Now, in which stage of life cycle of a product the sales of the product reach the peak and become stable? So we have four options, and the right option will be maturity. Ramesh has asked me, maybe he's asking about the previous question, that non-value added specs are part of value analysis. Yes, this is the part of value analysis, and we can remove the non-value adding activities and thus reducing the cost per unit effectively and efficiently. Now, in this question, my sales will be at the peak and stable at the maturity stage. Which of the following will help to maximize the return over the product life cycle? And the correct answer is D, that I carefully design out my product. Now, this is a life cycle cost question. One of the students has asked me that how can we calculate the life cycle cost? Sorry, I'm going back. One of the students has said that first one is also correct. Let's read that. Here the first one was minimizing the life cycle itself. So remember that this will reduce the returns. To maximize the returns, what we need to do is we need to maximize the life cycle itself. And one also maximizing the break-even time will also minimize the return. To maximize the return, we want our break-even time as soon as possible. So the break-even time should be less, not the maximize. Dear, in order to make higher, one of the students has suggested, in order to make higher profit with price skimming method. Yes, you can do that, by the way, but with that result, if your product life has been shortened, the overall profit at the end may not be enough. So now let's calculate the life cycle cost per unit. And this is a very easy question. What you all have to do is, you have to calculate the total cost in all the 3 years and then divide it by the total number of units in the 3 years. So let's first start with the variable cost. So variable cost in 2018 is 2.3 plus 0.5. It is 2.8. 2.8. And we have 2000 units. So it will be 5600. Now in 2019, the variable cost will be 1.8 plus 0.4, it will be 2.2. And there are 5000 units. So it will be, I guess, 11,000. And for 2020, it will be 1.2 plus 0.4, it will be 1.6, and I will be multiplying it with 7,000. It will be 11,200. Fahad has asked me why this is 2.8. The 2.3 is the variable production cost, whereas 0.5 is the variable selling cost. It is important to note that in life cycle costing, we use all costs. We use all cost. So when I total it, my total variable cost will be how much? It's 11,200 plus 11,000 plus 5,600. It will be 27,800. So it's Punil who is answering me, and I'm grateful to him. Now there are fixed costs as well. And what are these fixed costs? The fixed costs are 3,000, 1,500, 700, then 3,500, 1,600, 700, and 4,000, 1,600, and 700. So I will include all the fixed costs. If I could open my calculator, it will be 3,000 plus 3,500 plus 4,000 plus 1,500 plus 1,600 plus 1,600 plus 700 plus 700 plus 700. The answer will be 17,300. So the total fixed cost in all the 3 years will be how much it was? 17,300. That means my total life cycle cost will be 17,300 plus 27,800, and it is 45,100. This is the total life cycle cost. Thank you, Satkan. Yes, it is 45,100. Now, to calculate the per unit, I will divide it with the total number of units of the whole life, and the total number of units, is 14,000. So if I divide it by 14,000, my answer will be 3.22. So the correct answer will be 3.22. Now please note this question. Because we have seen an example of the calculation of activity-based costing, so this is your home assignment that you will do it yourself. When you come across to your campus inside, these questions will not be in the same order, but if you can look at the top, where it is written F5 performance measurement section A question 9 of 20. This is the name of the question, and that is costing area A 17371. So you can find this question and then try to solve it. Shazeb Akhtar has asked, if given, R&D cost will also be added? Yes, it will be added, if given. Mohammad Ilal Zia has asked me that Campus Insight can't access the Campus Insight. There is some helpline information. You can email them, or you can also contact the ACCA team for that. Dear, for the errors, I know there are few students who are encountering the problems in accessing the Campus Insight, but for that, please contact ACCA or email at info@campusinsight.net. I can write it on my screen. It will be info@campusinsight.net. Okay. Now, this is a question on drag and drop. So we have been provided with the tokens, and we have to drop each token against the relevant box. So let's read. Sales increase rapidly and also the variable cost, training needs and more equipment. So this is the stage of growth. So I will drag and drop it over here. Now, very low sales and marketing and staff training cost will be high. This happens in the introduction phase. Sales volume and variable cost would be falling and disposal cost will arise. This happens at the decline phase. Sales will be stable and high, and most costs will be variable cost. This will be at maturity sales. And no sales and research cost very high is at the development stage. Yes, Punil, you are correct. Now, this is an OT case. This is an OT case. And for this, let's first discuss the techniques to do an OT case. Now, the OT case is when you have 5 different questions on a similar background information. So you can see there will be 5 different questions on this background information. So in such situation, first of all, you should read the requirement and first, so that you understand from which topic it is. So for example, this is the question in which the marker has asked, calculate the throughput accounting ratio for both services. And in the answer, the only cuts are provided. That means this is the question from throughput accounting topic. Now read the background. Now because of lack of time, I'm not reading the whole background sentence by sentence. Rather, I will be pointing out the important information in that due to lack of time, because we have only left with around 8 minutes and we have to complete that. So Glam Company is a hairdressing salon. That means it is the nature of service is salons, and there are 2 different kinds of products. One is cuts and the other one is treatments. So every client will first go to the assistant, then to the senior stylist, and then finally to the junior stylist. So this will be the steps. It has been told that the saloon is closed for 2 hours and the staff salaries are $40,000 each year for each senior stylist. Yes, this is already been told. The senior stylist time has been correctly identified as bottleneck. Sorry, one of the students has told me that senior stylist will be the bottleneck, and yes, this is already provided in the scenario. So anyway, so $40,000 is the salary for the senior stylist, $28,000 for the junior, and $12,000 for the assistant. And also the overheads are 106,400. Now we have already been provided with the cost per hour of 42.56. In the question, we have been told that the cost per hour is 42.56. So to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, we only required throughput per hour. Well, if they didn't tell me that the senior stylist was the bottleneck, then what I do, I will check how many cuts and treatments can be done by each of them. So I will calculate the number of units against assistant, the senior stylist, and then the junior stylist. And the number of units that will be treated less by any of the 3 staff members will be the bottleneck. So you can refer back my example of when we discuss the machines, the machine X, machine Y, and machine Z. And in that, as machine Z produces lesser units between machine X and Y, so hence machine Z was the bottleneck. So you can refer back to that example for this. Now to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, we require throughput per hour. We already has been given the cost per hour, that is the conversion cost per hour. Now for cut, the throughput per unit will be how much? The selling price of cut is 60. It is 60. And the material cost is how much? It is 1.5. It is 1.5. That means the throughput per unit is 58.5. Now we have to calculate throughput per hour. So throughput per unit is 58.5. Now senior stylists consume 1 hour. That means I will divide it by 1. So the answer will be 58.5 once again. Now to calculate the throughput accounting ratio, I will now divide it by the conversion cost per hour, which is given in the question of 42.56. Hence the correct answer will be, if you calculate it, it will be 1.37, I guess. Yes, 1.3745. So as we have been asked to calculate into 2 decimal places, so it will be 1.37. Muhtar Siddiqui has asked, where is the conversion cost per unit mentioned? Dear, that is what I have highlighted over here. Oops. Here it is. 42.56. The saloon has calculated the cost per hour to be 42.56. So this cost per hour is actually the conversion cost per hour. Now, Fahad is continuously asking me that how to identify the bottleneck. Dear, it is simple. So first of all, we will see how many hours are available for each of them. How many hours are available? So we have, how many persons are there of assistant? There are 3 senior stylists, 2 saloon assistant, and 2 junior stylists. So 3 senior, 2 junior, and 2 assistants. Each will work how many hours per day? If we can find that, how many hours per day? Yes, the saloon is open for 8 hours each day. That means each day senior stylist has 24 hours, junior has 16 hours, and assistant has also 16 hours to work. Now, if I calculate for cut, senior stylist took 1 hour each day. That means senior stylist can perform 24 cuts. Now, junior stylist took 0.6. So if I divide it by 0.6, how much? It will be 16 by 0.6. It will be 26.67. 26.67. Similarly, assistant take how many? It is 0.1. That means 160 cuts can be done by the assistant. Now, as senior stylist can work on the lessest number of units, so this will be the bottleneck. Have you understood, Fahad, or not? Okay. So which three of the following activities could the saloon improve the throughput accounting ratio? So the three options are: it can identify ways to reduce the material cost for the services. Number two, improve the control of the saloon's total operating expenses. And number three, apply an increase to selling price of the service. So these three options are correct. What would be the effect on the bottleneck if the saloon employed another senior stylist? The correct option will be B. Muattar Siddiqui has suggested me that can we judge bottleneck by directly looking at hours taken, that is 1 and 1.5. Yes, we can, but for this, other base will have to be same. But this is not the case over here because there were 3 senior stylists and junior and assistant were 2. So if all of them have the same resources, then it will be the task to look at the time. So let's come back to the part C. So the correct answer will be B in this case. I'm doing it a bit hurry. So if you have any question, you can come back to me by tomorrow. Now, which of the following statements regarding the theory of constraint are correct? And the correct answers are 1 and 2. The first option is that it focuses on identifying stages of congestion in a process when production arrives more quickly than the next stage can handle. And the other option is it is based on the concept that organization manage 3 key factors: throughput, operating expenses, and inventory. So these 2 statements are correct. And in the part E, we have been asked that what is the annual capacity of the bottleneck activity? So it is 7,200 for cuts and 4,800 for treatment. How did it calculate it? So we have 24 hours each day, and we have been told that there are 6 days per week. And how many weeks in a year? There will be 50 weeks because it says only 2 weeks in each year are closed. So out of 52, that means 50 weeks are open. So 24 into 6 into 50 will be the total hours of senior stylist. So if we calculate it, it will be 24 into 50 into 6. The answer is 10,800. Sorry, 24 into 6 into 50, it is 7,200. 7,200. Now, each senior stylist is taking 1 hour of cut. That means in the whole year, senior stylist can cut 7,200. And for treatment, from 7,200 hours, each took 1.5. So if I divide it, it will take 4,800. Yes. So this will be the answer. Now, this is the question on life cycle costing. And note this OTKs, and this will be your home assignment. This will be your home assignment. This is Hallett Company target costing 13155. This is a relatively easy question. But the tip over here is that first read the requirement The first requirement so that you understand from which topic this question is, then read the background and then start solving it one by one. This is the tip to solve an OT case. So any further question? Because we are already 5 minutes up for the agreed time. So I assume there isn't any. Dear, theory of constraint is the bottleneck itself. Identification of bottleneck is known as theory of constraint. Okay? Okay, thank you very much. I hope this session is helpful for you, today's session. So thank you very much for your time. Remember, tomorrow I will be sharing my WhatsApp group. So you can join it and we can have the discussion other than this prepare to pass session. So thank you and goodbye.